the difference between average to good to exceptional, it's not actually that big. You've just got to put one foot forward and go from there.
There's never really a market problem. It's a mindset problem. If you want to be a top 1% agent, you've got to have a top 1% mindset.
I think people always regret the things they didn't do rather than regret the things they did do.
My job as your agent is to have conversations with you that you might not want to hear, but you need to have.
The estate agents who are going to earn the top 1% are those who have the most amount of uncomfortable conversations.
I wonder how many estate agents listening to this want to be a top 1% agent. Welcome to Estate Agent Showdown, and this is an off-the-cuff special. Because you're special. Simon Gates, he is a special man in our industry, someone that gets brought up time and time again, and I do it like I'm rolling my eyes. I'm actually doing it because I'm really proud of the guy. But in many of the podcasts that I've already been on and hosted, his name comes up time and time again. So you're watching the best episode right now. And this conversation is very, very, very off the cuff. Simon doesn't know what we're going to talk about. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're just going to roll with it, roll with the punches, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll be taking some gold away. And, you know, I've made one or two prompts because I thought I better get us started, Simon. And my first one, and by the way, welcome to your second appearance. Yeah. I think this will be about episode 32, 33. What does that make us in the podcasting ranks?
So 21 episodes means you're in the top 1%.
Cheers. We're in the top 1%.
So yeah, top 1% of podcasts. I actually, when I go see some estate agents, I do this kind of intro for people who are not familiar with me, and I'll say something along the lines of, so just to introduce myself, I'm a top 1% podcaster in the world. And it's said in that way to come across as kind of overly confident / verging on arrogance for them to go, all right, who does this?
Credibility.
Yeah, and it's like, who does this guy think he is? But then I follow on to it by saying, how many episodes do you think I had to do to be a top 1% podcaster in the world? And they'll all go, a few hundred, whatever. And I go, 21 episodes. So the difference between, you know, average to good to exceptional, it's not actually that big. You just got to put one foot forward and go from there.
What a great analogy. And it made me just think, this is off the cuff, right? But it's made me think straight away, I wonder how many estate agents listening to this want to be a top 1% agent and what that would actually take. We can dive into that today.
Yeah.
I've got a great belief, and this is with 30 years in the industry, but more so regardless of the experience, that there's never really a market problem. It's a mindset problem. And I think that's more prevalent now than it's been ever in our industry. I really do see the difference between, it feels like the top agents and the rest, there feels like there's this gap appearing. What do you see?
Yeah, it's interesting there because I think you've got agents in two camps. So one half will see challenges, the other half will see opportunity. So like with the whole, and I'm not going to claim to understand the ins and outs of it, but like the Renters' Rights Bill, massive opportunity for agents to show their value and their worth, to try and convert self-managed landlords into landlords managed by agents. About 82% of landlords manage their own property. It's a huge amount, it's ridiculous, and they're not seeing value in a letting agent. Now, if I go back to, got to get my dates right, I think it was 2019 when we had the tenant fee ban. Yeah. The business I was in was going, shit, like
we're going to lose this
we're going to lose all this money. But when
we
sat down and went, well, actually, can we increase our fees here? There's bits over here we're not charging for. All of a sudden, that part of the business becomes more profitable. So yeah, challenges or opportunities. And the two most dangerous sentences I hear time and time again from estate agents are, we've always done it this way, or that will never work in our marketplace. But there's always
our window display isn't big enough.
Yeah.
But I heard all of those things, especially as an area manager years and years and years ago. You'd get a new office. You'd normally get a really profitable office taken off of your hands and given a real dud because you've proved yourself to turn offices around. And the highest piece of motivation was to take something that's making a couple of $100,000 profit and give you something that's making maybe $100,000 loss. Yeah. I mean, it used to really buzz me up on the drive over to one of these offices. But I look back now, and it was, the mindset piece, it's a really interesting, because you hear a lot around mindset, and mindset's a very overused kind of word, if you like. But we were just talking before you joined, before we switched this on, about an agent that reached out to you. Obviously, without naming the brand, I know you won't anyway. You're very careful. Tell us a little bit about what actually happened there.
It reminded me of myself almost 10 years ago when I reached out to you, where kind of Groundhog Day, no man's land of it's just the same repetitive shit over and over and over. And the people around you, what is it? They're either drains or radiators.
Yeah.
And I think that person has got drains around her, but they're sapping the life and energy out of like the room, which is not a nice environment to be in. And there's that saying, what is it? You can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. And that's why I first sought mentorship from you, was that I went around the people in the business I was in who were senior to me to try and get even better. And I was shocked. But I was like, okay, there's nothing I can learn from these people, hence why I invested in myself and came out of those four walls. But it's an interesting one in terms of like the mindset side of things, because I'd kind of throw it back to you as an employer. It's like it's responsibility on both sides, from the employee to want to get better and the employer to want to make sure those employees get better as well. You'll have some employees who say, oh, my employer doesn't do any training. And then I hear employers going, oh, they don't want to do any training. It's like there's got to be a concerted effort there. There's a really interesting study. I can't remember the exact details of the name, but long and short of it, if you go get a degree and you do a few years at university, your coursework, your lectures, your exams, whatever, 3-4 years worth of work. Basically, every year after that, you need to do 250 hours of studying to remain relevant. Okay. So if you're not doing 250 hours of learning a year, so 5 hours a week, 1 hour a day, if you're an estate agent driving around for appointments, it's easy to listen to a podcast for an hour a day. Your knowledge is becoming dated. So the agents who could maybe get away with a certain way of doing things 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago, like every year, that thing they did is getting more and more outdated. So like, for example, and I will shut up, I promise.
No, keep going. This is interesting.
I remember one particular agent I worked with, and he'd bang on about, it's probably 30 years experience now, actually. But he would say, oh, I've got 25 years experience. It's like, you've actually got 1 year of experience 25 times over. You're not learning, like you're not getting any better, you're not changing anything, you're just doing the same thing you always did. And it might have got you to here, but it's not going to get you there.
So she reached out to you and she was like, I'm getting drained by the people around me, or I don't know where I'm going. What was the...
Yeah, I think similar to me in terms of, if this is the rest of my career, that's not a great place to be. And my own journey, which I shared with the person, was I seeked mentorship and improve things within the environment I was in. And then I think as I grew, I realised actually I need to step out of that environment and go somewhere else. But without me taking that first step and having some accountability, responsibility and taking action, that would never happen. But I think the vision for me was, imagine in 10 years' time if you were sat in that office on that high street and going, fuck, why did I never take that opportunity? And I think people always regret the things they didn't do rather than regret the things they did do.
Do you think people, we talked about that, you do 1 year 25 times. If you were to hire into your estate agency today then, what would be primarily the principles or values or things that you would look for from someone? And is experience more obsolete because it can come with, well, I've never really done it any other way, or that kind of thing? What goes through your mind? Imagine you're starting Gatesy, let's say Gigs and Gates. Estate
That's never
agents.
crossed your mind before, has it?
No. And you were hiring and you were looking to build a new business. What would be your person?
So I'd say from my own experience, the best people I had as, let's say, negotiators within my branch were ones who, what's the word? Is mouldable a word? And
Let's call it a word.
Yeah, they were trainable, teachable, whatever. And they were young, hungry, energetic. I had others who came in who had been in other businesses, and it's like you've got to rip out all the stuff that they've learned and unlearn them. They've been taught badly, like just really, really poor ethical practices. So I think that actually looking outside of the industry. The amount of people I've had on my podcast, the amount of other podcasts I've listened to where I ask the question, where did you find good people and how do you retain them? The amount of times where the great people are found not in another estate agency, but it could be in retail. For example, I had Rob Smith on my podcast recently off the back of hearing him on yours. Yeah. And he said to me that back in the early days in like the 90s, he said they stole so many people from Next because they're going to Next looking for, I can't remember the exact words he said, but they go in looking for a suit and they come out not only with a suit, but a shirt, a tie, some cufflinks and some socks because they're being upsold. They're like, well, if you can do that, you can probably work in the estate agency to get better fees, get a better price for the seller, and maybe, again, ethically, not conditionally, try and sell some mortgage services and some conveyancing.
It's funny, the things that are going through my mind, because this is like just a random conversation that's gone on to mindset. I was chatting to Melissa last night about this, and we're going through a transition from sort of partnerships, if you like, in terms of business partnerships, into agent partnerships. So we're developing the model for employed agents to become partners, but also have just one brand, and also develop a self-employed version of that and actually give people the choice. Now, when we were kind of thinking about who's the ideal, who would be our perfect and so on and so forth, in other words, who would be the kind of agent that we would want to bring in, the first thing Mel's like, they've just got to have the right mindset. And then you think, okay, so because a lot of people could have the right mindset, they're just in the wrong environment. I think we just touched on that. And I would know, looking back at myself probably 15, 16 years ago, certainly within the 2 years before I took the leap, I'd say my mindset wasn't there. It was definitely not there. I was very much disenfranchised with where I was. I didn't actually know what core values were back then. So I didn't know why I felt this unease about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And that's not to be critical of where I was. It's just, that was a personal feeling. And, obviously you kind of move out of that into a space where you are aligned with who you are. And then all of a sudden this kind of lift comes and this freedom comes. And I know you've felt that over the years. But sometimes people, when it comes to mindset, where they are right now, there's so many factors surrounding that individual that could infect their mindset. Yeah. And they just don't understand how to break through.
So, there's a few things going on in my head from what you said. What's the classic saying? You are the average, or you're the sum of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So if you surround yourself with 5 dickheads, you're the 6th dickhead. Another quote is, if you don't want to slip over, don't hang around in slippery spots. So, if you don't want to, if you're wanting to cut back on alcohol, well, don't hang around with the 5 mates who the only thing you do is go boozing on a Friday night. So there's that. And then in terms of the mindset, I heard Alex Hormozy say this, and it's something like, if you can wake up in a bad mood for no reason, you can wake up in a good mood for no reason.
Oh, that's nice.
And how many times have you and I, or anyone watching or listening to this, woken up and just gone, today's going to be a shit day. And then you let it build and build. You wake up just not in a good mood for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe West Ham have lost, or...
Well, one of my first questions was, where do you think Liverpool are going to finish in the league? And I thought, I'm not going to ask. Why would I ask that when we're 3rd from bottom? But anyway.
Now, let's say you wake up in a bad mood, you get out the wrong side of the bed, you go to make yourself a coffee, and I always kind of use this example, the milk's gone off. Oh, typical, always happens to me.
Bang your foot on the side.
And I think, and that sort of thing. And I think probably, again, coming up to not a decade ago, somewhere between half a dozen years and a decade ago, I was probably in a mindset of, you wake up and it's raining and you go, for God's sake, I was going to play golf today, it's raining. Whereas actually now I go, okay, I'm not going to play golf today, it's raining, but great, I can catch up on some work that I really need to catch up on, or maybe, I'll catch up on a Netflix series, or I'll do some cleaning around the house, like whatever it might be. Like, you need to escape that mindset. And there's something, I think it's called the burnt toast theory. Have you ever heard of that?
No. Because you've got a lot of things I have not heard of, but they're very good. Keep going.
The burnt toast theory is something along the lines of, you'll never know what burnt toast has done for you, or, is it bad luck? And there's a story about the guy who talks. It's like a parable, and it's about the boy who breaks his leg.
Right.
And basically people say, oh, that's really bad luck, isn't it? Your boy's broken his leg. And he went, maybe not. And the story keeps going. And then I think war breaks out. And it's like, well, actually, the boy's not gone to war because his leg is broken. So whilst it's bad luck to break your leg.
Yeah, he's got out of killing himself.
Yeah, so the whole mindset thing is trying to reframe it as a positive.
And we've both gone through periods where our mindset's questionable.
Yeah.
And you still do, right? I would imagine. I can't see anyone that doesn't have those particular days when you wake up and something. It could have been you've been drinking. It could have been to do with what you're eating. It could be to do with a relationship, whatever. But how do you block that noise out? Or because it ultimately, what we're saying is, if you want to be a top 1% agent, you've got to have a top 1% mindset. And if you want to have a top 1% mindset, you've got to make choices. And how you choose to get out of bed is the first choice that you make at the start of the day. And it sounds like to a lot of people that are going to be listening and watching this, they would have heard similar messages, I would imagine, over the years and ignored it. So what's going to make someone who's listening to this and watching this pull us up further down the line and go, that was the moment where I decided I'm going to make a different choice?
So a couple of things come to mind. One is success leaves clues. So I'd recommend to people to journal at the start of the day and journal at night and just write down how you're feeling, which it can be sound really cringy or can be difficult for men typically. But I go back through it and look through, when was it shit, like what the feelings I'm writing, good, bad, ugly, what did my world look like at that point? And it might be, hang on a minute, the feelings I was putting down on paper in that month, that's actually a really boozy month, or that was a month where I was not at home a lot, I was out on the road a lot, so actually I didn't have enough me time. That sort of thing.
So journaling sounds a bit, to a lot of people, a bit woo-woo.
Yeah.
But what you're actually saying is most of the time it's stuck in your head.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's actually truly in there. And one of the skills I've had to learn over the years is how to have a really good conversation. And actually you generally don't start the conversation with it being really good. And I'm not saying that's the case for this particular episode of the Estate Agent Showdown, but you tend to find the conversation when you do become more vulnerable, more honest, and doing that with yourself, it's certainly a great place to unravel. And you're saying journaling's a good place, and I've done journaling before, and there was a period where I was on fire with it, and it made a significant difference because you're able to write down things that more often than not, it's coming out of you without you're not even consciously aware of what you're writing. So it's because the questions are normally in the journal, it's just helping you to open up your mind. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you're starting to offload some of the shit because you can't have a top 1% mindset or be a top 1% agent if there's too much shit in your head.
Yeah.
So it helps you to do that, right?
Yeah.
Is that what happened to you when you were doing it?
Yeah, and I think on what you're saying there, just a couple of actionable tips for anyone listening or watching. What's been a really great leveler, and I love the final question in my podcast these days in terms of ripping off Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO conversation cards. And they're really, really deep questions. I actually recorded some content recently where I just got asked all those questions. I thought it'd be really easy. I was like, well, I've asked these questions. I know what's coming. But then when someone says to you, I don't know, what's a good example of a question? Who is someone you've not forgiven that you should?
Yeah, nice.
And then you're like, okay, I've committed to answering these questions. I've spent a lot of money on recording this content. I've now got to release it. And you're like, am I going to feel a bit uncomfortable having that out there in the whole wide world? But it's about having better conversations. So I'd say for anyone watching, listening, actually buy those cards. And it could be asking those cards to your life partner. It could be asking them to colleagues in the office, depending on what the relationships are. And I'd say just on mindset, I'd strongly recommend listening to $1 Million Agent with Tom Panos, John McGrath, Troy Malcolm.
Right.
Have you got that on there?
No. Do you know, it's funny actually, you say that. I was watching, when you were talking about $1 Million Agent, I was watching Ryan Serhant's new series over Christmas. So, sorry, I just got distracted there.
I mean, Ryan Serhant's good example as well, but what Troy, Tom and John, I'm talking like they're my best mates, they talk a lot about mindset, and when they talk about the top performing Aussie real estate agents, and they treat their business like they're professional athletes. Yeah. So like Saturday, if they know they've got a day full of auctions, as they call it, they're not getting pissed the night before. Yeah. They're, how many times have we probably, and many listening or watching this over the years, been working a weekend in our earlier days and being out on the piss the night before? And sure, in your early 20s, you can get away with it. But as you get older, it's a bit harder. But a good example, James Milner. He's going to probably break the all-time Premier League record for most Premier League appearances, and he's, I think, 40 now.
Yeah, he's an incredible role model,
and a lot of that is down to how they're looking after themselves. So,
but the story with James Milner, and he was never the highest priced signing, was he? So he's always felt to me like he's a classic example of someone who's really worked at the mindset, definitely. How he looks after himself is a reflection of that, and then how he performs is the result. He's a great role model. And when you compare it to a lot of perhaps the footballers that are signed for big money, and are the ones that are in the paper and everything else, you can see the difference. Yeah,
he's focused on being on the back pages, not the front pages of the newspapers. And it set him up for a really good career. He's won everything you can possibly win. Random fact, he is the record holder for most assists in a single Premier League season.
Is he really? No, don't tell me. I'm guessing who that was for.
Champions League season, yeah. But when you think of, in the Champions League in that era, your Ronaldos, your Messis, Neymar at one point, Suarez, etc. You wouldn't think Milner would be above those names when it comes to most assists.
Man, he's an incredible player, and I think if you're listening to this as an agent, if you're going to be able to sit here and honestly say, Simon, the mindset trait that will kill an agent's career faster than ever in the next 12 to 24 months, if you like, what would be the biggest killer, the trait?
Lack of responsibility, self-awareness and accountability. They will blame the market, and I would say it's not a market issue, it's a marketing issue, but that marketing comes into mindset. So my analogy that I've used before, and you'll completely get as a fellow golfer, is we're recording this in January. So let's say in January it's typically colder, it's windy, it's wet, the golf ball's not going to travel as far. What would typically be a 7-iron, you now should actually hit a 6-iron to get it to the green. Yeah. What most estate agents do in a market like what we just compared to the winter of golf is they actually will hit an 8-iron. Yeah. So when the market gets tough and it's really shit, let's cut back on everything. No, you want to double down and invest more. And what I found really interesting in terms of mindset, of all the different guests I've had on the podcast, guests I've had on who started a business in the early 90s, Kevin Hollinrake, who,
I listened to that episode. Do you have
early 90s, terrible time. One of your best periods of being an estate agent, the 2008 crash. The amount of agents who launched a business during a COVID period, crazy time to launch a business. And then for me, I quit my job at the start of 23, interest rates had just spiked. Yeah. So I find this real common theme of when everything is telling you don't and the market's shit, it's like, well, again, everyone's seeing challenges, let's fall back. That's opportunity.
It's really interesting. 2 of my clients that I mentor today, I've worked with one of them for 7 years, and one for 2. Really good guys, really have improved their businesses. One of them's messaged to me and said he's really fucked off because someone's basically copying things that he's doing. Now we know the answer to that. It's a really complimentary thing, isn't it? It's, if they're not copying you, you're obviously not doing something well enough. Yeah. So people don't tend to copy mediocre, which is what I went back to. But also it shows that he's ahead, not behind. So the mindset of that, because it can derail you. These things can derail you. The other guy phoned me and said, one of his key members of his team has just resigned and she leaves the middle of next week. What am I going to do? Well, the good news is he already knew what question I was going to ask. Well, what are the 3 solutions? And he's already got 2. So I said, well, we meet tomorrow. You only need another one and we'll decide which one's the best, right? And the key, like I explained to him, is whatever the solution is, it has to be better than your current situation. So whether it's a person, can we get an even better person, or so on and so forth. So this is all reflecting back to the mindset, and that actually that thinking is a choice. That thinking is a choice. Nobody's making you think that way. Nobody's saying to you, you must take the easy road, the easy path. You've got to decide how you want things to go from here. And actually, there's 2 pathways. There's a pathway to failure, and then there's the pathway to success. So it's really a choice. You wake up in the morning, how you wake up depends on how you've gone to bed. Fair to say?
Yeah.
And, if you're on your screen till late at night, you're probably not going to get the best sleep. You wake up, you're probably not going to be in the best mood. All of these things are things that someone can influence. But do you think people don't go into that mindset choice because they don't actually know why? I'm just going to leave it at that. They don't actually know their why. Potentially.
Yeah, well, I think if we look at, let's just say, the education system in this country, and obviously I've not been in education for a while now, but when you're younger, it's like, this is Pythagoras' theorem, and this is pi, and all that sort of shit. And you're like, well, teach us how to build wealth, or how do I don't know, start a business, or how do you save to buy a house, or how can you have a better mind? Like, that's just not taught at school. You're kind of taught to, this is how to pass an exam. It's like I remember when I was learning to drive, and I was in my instructor's car, and he'd like tell me, right, so when you're doing a 3-point turn or whatever it is, he's like, marry up to the sticker on the car window. And I'm like, but when I start driving, I'm not going to be in your car. Yeah. And he's like, I'm not teaching you to drive, I'm teaching you how to pass a driving test. And I use that a lot today in terms of there's a lot out there to, well, let's get you to pass an exam. Yeah. Okay, but let's teach you how to have a better mindset or be a better estate agent. So I think the education system is failing us there, but it goes back to the whole whose responsibility is it, employer or employee? Yeah. I found this hard. I've only had 2 full-time jobs in my adult life. Each job I had, I treated as if it was like a franchise, and what I mean by that is my own business within a business. And it's I can't remember which president it was, but a president walks into NASA and goes up to a gentleman and says, "And what do you do here at NASA?" And he says, "I'm putting man on the moon." And he was a janitor. He's not the one in the rocket ship going up on the moon, but everyone was, well, I'm a small cog in the overall wheel to get man on the moon. So I think there needs to be a lot more on mindset, but I think it needs to start from within. Yeah. And in terms of like that why, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, but my kind of mission is to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents.
Why?
And the why behind that is walking into a new golf club 15 years ago and being introduced as shiny suit, clipboard, can't trust him. Not another fucking estate agent is what they said. And the veracity index that comes out every year, about 30% of estate agents are trusted. So my thing is, well, I want to be the most useful person to follow for UK estate agents, because if they are better, it means a better service, better outcome for the UK public, who will then have a better perception of estate agents, because we're not thought of like in America and Australia as professionals. And people don't introduce typically, oh, this is my estate agent. They'll go, this is my barber, this is my electrician, this is my plumber. It's quite rare, but they'll say that's the estate agent. They won't go, that's my estate agent.
Whew. It's good, isn't it? This is a great conversation already, and I'm going to dive into the market and the opportunities as well, because I was looking at, again, you look within your sphere of influence, and I was looking at what an agent, let's say the one that banks the most as an independent agent versus who do I know within my sphere that maybe banks the least? So technically work the same hours, but one does 350,000 and the other one does 70,000.
Yeah.
That they work the same hours. Yeah. Could you predict which agent does what? So on a daily basis, could you literally sit here and go, I could describe what the 70 grand agent does, what they don't do, and what they say? And could you describe what the £350,000 agent, what they do on a daily basis, maybe what they don't do, and what they say?
That is a really, really interesting point. And you've made me think of, there's like a Sky Sports series, and I think like the sidemen maybe do this sort of thing. Random, actually. One of my best mates was on it's not Sidemen, it's one of the other ones, with Chunks or whatever. And they had Ed Sheeran. I promise I'm answering your question.
No, that's
okay.
They
had Ed Sheeran on this panel, and it was basically they had to guess who the professional singer was. My friend had a tiger head on to hide his identity. He's not a professional singer. He does he is good, but he's not professional. But Ed Sheeran would hear them like sing a little bit. Then he'd ask them questions like, "So what do you do before you go out on stage?" And someone might say, "Oh, I drink lemon and honey," or whatever. And they've done it for other things. Liverpool, Andy Robertson and I think Alexander Isak were guessed a professional footballer. Justin Rose guessed a professional golfer. So why I've gone down that route initially is, wouldn't it be amazing to have 5 estate agents and you don't know them from
Adam?
You
don't know the bankings, you don't know the brand.
You just ask them questions. What does your Monday look like? Or,
oh my God, we should do that.
So we've got an idea there. But
would the one who's banking 70 grand want to come on there?
Well, yeah. But again, I think
depends on if they want to grow, right?
Your podcast, my podcast, various other podcasts, whether you're self-employed, franchise, independent, hybrid, corporate, all the different things, your podcast particularly has shown me in terms of the showdown is that there is most definitely more than one way to skin a cat.
Oh, 100%.
And there can be people doing a few hours a day, earning 70 grand a year, incredibly happy, and then there can be others doing...
Well, that's so true, and I love the questions, and then you can hear the answers as to what their income is. And by the way, you're quite right. There will be someone in my team next year that will probably bank, or this year, that will probably bank 100. And actually, for the hours that they work, that's a really great return. And what they get paid will be a really great reward. So you're spot on. The thing I love about all of this, and the one thing I've always loved about our industry is you do get rewarded for your value, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
Depending on if you're listening to this or watching this and you don't feel that that's the case, then there's your first sign of digging a bit deeper, like that lady's done who reached out to you. Because generally speaking, you should be, if you're in a brand or you're part of a franchise or a network or a company, that you should be in control of your earning potential.
Yeah, there's I'm going to not remember it exactly, there's a Tom Panos quote around real estate is the highest paying, hard working industry, but it's also the lowest paying, low working industry. Something like that. You can definitely get out what you put in. And in terms of your point as well in differentiating between the top agents, typically the agents I deal with, it's like, show me your diary.
And I'll show you your...
Yeah, like when you see, let's say Monday and it's empty, okay, why is it not blocked out for between this time I'm, whatever it might be, door knocking, sending letters, recording content, posting social media, following up on old valuations, whatever. And that's the point as well from my podcast, your podcast, other podcasts. There's, again, more than one way to skin a cat. There are some agents who will say direct mail does not work. There are some who don't believe in video. But what I've seen, again, from all the podcasts is as long as there's some form of activity being done from door knocking, letters, social media, video, it works. But to try and hopefully sum up the answer to your original question, I'll try and sum it up into 10 points of what I think would show the difference between the top agent and not. So they have an attitude of action. So if you talk to them about doing something, they'll go do it. They'll then be very consistent with it. The third thing will be systems and processes. So as they're taking action and being consistent with it, they'll build systems and processes. They'll have the right tech to support them. So that from AI to the right CRM to a prospecting tool. They do marketing, whether that's door knocking, direct mail, social media, video. They have the right people. So the right people on the right seats, and the right people on the right seats creates great culture. Yeah. I go into some offices where I'm like, holy fuck, who died? Like, it's terrible. Yeah. And in some offices, hello Simon, how are you doing?
It's like a morgue.
They like, it's as if like they've never met me before, never spoken to me, but they've clearly looked at the diary the night before of what's happening tomorrow. Simon Gates come in to see Matt Giggs. Who's Simon Gates? Do a bit of research. Oh, hi Simon, how are you doing? Can I get you tea, coffee, whatever? So people then brings in culture. Data, obviously I'm going to say data, but knowing your numbers. So how much does it actually cost you to sell a house? Yeah. So how much should you be charging to make the profit that you want to do? Yeah. And then the last couple of bits, one which definitely rings true of you, the few times where you've gone for coffee or a bite to eat around here, is people going, hey Matt, how are you doing? So community. They're active in their community know who they are. So just reeled off 9 points there. There's definitely a 10th one that I've completely forgotten.
It's probably, I mean, one of the ones I think you mentioned Sam Hunnett shared that with you about 20 conversations a day. Yeah. There's definitely one there for because if you're in a estate agency and you don't like conversations, you're in admin. So if you're in admin, you shouldn't be earning 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a year or more. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, it depends on what level of admin you're in. But if you're not fee earning or serving people at the highest level in the most challenging area of their life, which it can be, moving home, it can be made extremely difficult if you've got somebody that doesn't want to talk to you, especially. So that for me, and do you know what? It makes me laugh really that if I sat down with someone today and said, look, all I want you to do is this on a Monday. All I want you to do is this on a Tuesday and leave space for the appointments. All I want you to do is this on a Wednesday and there's a training session there. All I want you to do on a Thursday is this, on a Friday is that, and on a Saturday and on a Sunday you prep for your week. Now, if you do that and you stick to that and you stick to it for the next 3 months, that's 90 days of building a habit. But you've got to stick to it. And if you stick to it, I'll give you, I don't know, however much, right? I'm at that point of thinking that something like that has to be, I find that people are distracted more than ever now. And that most actually know, like if you want to lose weight, there's so much information out there in the market. You've also got a jab, which you can get as well. And I haven't got the jab for a estate agency for you to get into the top 1%. But I can tell you that if you do these things consistently, in 3 months you'll see the benefits, and they will be ingrained in your soul, in your brain, in your rhythm of what you do, and you will not want to leave them because you've seen the effects. It feels like people want to change, they just don't know how. And we've been guilty of this with you. You know, you come over and you share some incredible things and stats and stories, and we talk about them and we lament over them, we get excited, and then you go and then it stops, or it doesn't even fucking start. And then, you know, we do use stats, but we don't. There's so much more we could do, but we don't. And I think the reason why we don't is because we prioritize C tasks, D tasks, and bullshit and distractions. And actually, I genuinely think if an agent could talk me through their next 3 months or even their next 7 days, I think that would be a challenge. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%.
That you can literally say, I know you're going to be successful.
Well, you can see it. So again, we're recording this in January, and I would say, what's the saying? Summer bodies are made in the winter. Well, the summer cash pot for estate agents is going to be made in the winter. So these dark, cold, miserable January days, the work you put in now is the money you're going to get paid in 6 months' time.
And the mindset for me today, for an agent to speak to more people, is no one else is doing it.
Yeah, and on that as well, it's a bit like, so when someone, let's say, says to you, and it's flipping the mindset, what's your fee? What does the average estate agent think? Oh, I need to cut my fee because they're questioning my fee. Clearly fee is important to them. No, actually, flip it to a positive. If they're asking your fee, which means that they must have an interest in doing business with you. Yeah. And if you were looking to sell a house, you'd like to know how much it's going to cost you to move. So on the point that you're making there, and something you said in your podcast with Sam and Mike, I can't remember the exact language you used. It was in the trailer. What was it? Was this my job? You said something along the lines of, my job is to have difficult conversations.
Yes. My job as your agent is to have conversations with you that you might not want to hear, but you need to have, or something along those lines. It's kind of getting that point across that actually. Yeah. You know, my job isn't to tell you what you want to hear; it's to give you what you need. Yeah.
So a few points on that and what you're saying earlier. So the estate agents who are going to earn the top 1% are those who have the most amount of uncomfortable conversations. If you get to the end of the day and go, do you know what, that was a lovely day. I had lots of lovely conversations. Oh, Matt's nice. Melissa, what a lovely couple. If you don't come away from it going, fucking hell, that's a really tough conversation. So that's where you're earning the money, is in those difficult conversations. And to reiterate the points you've made, telling a seller what they want to hear will win their business. Telling them what they need to hear will get them moved. Mr. Seller, what would you rather I do today? And I think that 2026 is, and I'm completely ripping this off, I can't remember where from, but 2026 is about kindness, not being nice. So I could be nice and say, you've got a really lovely house, but okay, that's nice. The kind thing to do would be, your house is a bit of a shithole and it stinks of dogs. You need to get it professionally cleaned. Now, that's not very nice. No, but I'm being really kind to those people, because telling them that, but no one else will, is actually maybe going to be a difference between them moving or not. So yeah, I think the agents who are doing really well are having lots of uncomfortable conversation. I love the quote that Tom Panos did on my podcast. It was along the lines of...
Is he sponsoring you?
No, but that was huge having him on the podcast, I have to say.
You should go to that. What episode was it?
I genuinely can't remember.
Well, look, Simon, opening the gates to more listings. Go and watch the one with Tom Panos, because it sounds like there's a shitload of gold in that one.
There was a lot. And he said, I'd rather comfort you with a lie than hurt you with the truth.
Yeah.
And he said that line. I think if you do watch it on YouTube, you probably see me turn to the side and immediately write it down in my notepad. It's like, that's a clip, because it was so true. But too many estate agents are going out there and just telling people what they want to hear, because they want to have an easy conversation and then just walk out there and go, oh, that was all right.
It's funny, really, because let's think psychologically about this. And if you as an agent haven't quite mastered the art of having those clear, assertive, valuable conversations, because I think they are difficult. They're difficult because we're not conditioned to have conversations like that. But if I was to ask everybody that has in a relationship at one point in time, they've probably had a difficult conversation with their partner, and 9 out of 10 times, if not slightly higher, they would have come out of the conversation closer together.
Yeah.
And, I'm a great believer that actually you're seeking these conversations, because they become less difficult because you're looking at it differently. You're looking at it as kindness. You're looking at it as, if I don't have this conversation, they're not going to achieve their outcome. So this is on me. And I would actually say to a client, there's a conversation we need to have that if we don't have it, you're unlikely to get to your outcome. And that's on me. And I'm really uncomfortable about that. That's quite a nice thing to say, isn't it? It's kind.
If I was looking to sell my house, that's the agent I'd want in my corner.
That's where I was getting to. Thank you for bringing me back. This is why we're such a great team. He's already brought me back and answered questions that I'd forgotten I'd asked. So we're on the right lines here. But that's the point. If, let's say 100 agents are watching this, hopefully a lot more, who would you want selling your home? Would you want you currently doing what you do right now, or the new version of you, which is what we're sharing, which is not to patronize you. This is to say to you that actually the top 1% agents, they approach the difficulties with more ease. And the reason why they're more these conversations are easier is because they're more aligned with the truth. And because they're aligned with the truth, the best estate agents just know how to tell the truth in a kind of way.
Yeah. And I think on the bits you've said there, is it, God, can't remember who it is. Maybe it's Bruce Lee. I'm not scared of the man who's done 1,000 kicks one time. I'm scared of a man who's done one kick 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Like repetition. And I had SJ Taylor from Greenhouse OS on my podcast, and she said, I think it was PIP, PIP, practice in private, perform in public.
Oh man, that's I've talked about this for years.
But
how many agents practice in private, and actually, they practice on the public, right? And when you think about the difference that it could make, if you just went to the basics, let's say if you practiced in private for at least 1 hour a week on fees, would you increase your fees by 0.25%?
Yeah.
Right. We can I could guarantee that. So if you want the challenge, let me know. But 0.25% average house price in the UK, you'll know this better than anybody.
280 grand.
So can we round it up to 300 just for ease? What's 0.25% of 300?
750.
I knew he's brilliant. Let's say there's how would you calculate that back up? So you've got £750 per instruction, higher fees. Now what's the average estate agent going to complete on in a year? Number. Let's just throw a freaking figure out there.
There'll be variety. There'll be various things on this, but let's just call it 50.
Right, we're going to do 50. You probably know this. See if I can get to the calculator first, though.
50 times 75? It'll be 37.5 grand.
So, for an hour a week, would you want £37,500?
Yeah.
What could you do with £37,500, right? But life is always teaching us lessons, whether it's in your personal world or your work world. There are so many lessons to be kind of aware of. And I think where people get perhaps slightly challenged is that at the minute, I think the economy, news, headlines, there are so many reasons to support the victim mindset at the minute that actually that's where the opportunity lies.
Can I give us some up-to-date data on why there's positivity in the market?
We're going to come to that. So let's go straight into it.
So at the time, and this could all go belly up, when Donald Trump's very close to a big red button, but we'll see. Where are we at? So we're averaging about 65,000 mortgage approvals every single month. Now, around about 2/3, 3/4 of all house purchases are mortgages. The rest are cash or cash from sale. We've all heard that over the years. I'm cash, but it's a mortgage. But cash or cash from sale. So basically, if you've got 65,000 mortgage approvals a month, and then the other third quarter are not mortgages, that would mean that we'd round it up to 100,000. So if mortgage approvals are 65,000 now, it will take 4 months to go through.
Yeah.
So I know in 4 months' time, we're going to see 100,000 transactions based on 65,000 mortgage approvals in November. Yeah. The transaction numbers at the moment that I track are steady around 100,000. 100,000 times 12 is 1.2 million. That is the 50-year long-term average for transaction numbers in the UK, 1.2 million.
Was it about that last year?
Are we talking last year as in 2025?
Or who shared some stats recently about that? Someone done an article on it. I can't remember who it was now.
Well, I put a post out recently, but
might have been Simon Bradbury.
Yes, he did something. I think
someone
it was
load of guys were predicting.
Russell Quirk, Simon Whale, Tony Morris, and Ian McKenzie.
Yeah,
were the people.
But what's interesting? What I thought was interesting is 5, and there was the variance between each statistic was quite wide. So I think it was like total number of new listings, total number of exchanged or completions, house price growth. So even in the industry, what I took from that was, shit, look at how far apart these guys are. You're talking 20, 30% apart. Yeah. And imagine a consumer. You wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah.
So onto the market.
Yeah, so in terms of transaction numbers, which is, we talk too much about house prices, and I will come on to that, but actually you need fluidity in the market, you need transactions to be happening. So it doesn't matter if house prices have gone up or house prices have gone down. If people are not moving, estate agents are not earning money, the government want transactions to happen, because transactions mean a real boost to the economy, hence why they opened up the property market so quickly in May 2020 from COVID, and had the stamp duty holiday that they did. So from a transaction perspective, things are actually really steady. Now, bearing in mind, we lost arguably a third of 2025 due to budget uncertainty, because the tax reform leaks happened in early August. The budget didn't happen until at the end of November. Then people went, well, it's Christmas, I'll wait till the new year. So you kind of lost a third of the year to that uncertainty. But yeah, transaction numbers look to be steady, which is a good sign. And then in terms of house price growth, it just looks like it will be very low single-digit percentage house price growth. And it's good to have a little bit of house price growth each year, because it means that existing homeowners can build up equity. The more equity they have, the more likely they are to upsize, which is always good for a market. And because of the bank of mum and dad or grandparents who invested in property many decades ago, they're now gifting their money to first-time buyers. First-time buyers are the biggest buyer group in the market, make up about 40% of the market.
That's gone up though, hasn't it?
Yeah, but and this thing, so there's two things on this. When people find out what I do and they're like, oh, it's really hard to get on the property ladder, isn't it? I'm like, well, it is and it isn't, because if you actually look at the average house price to earning ratio, and 2/3 of mortgages are on joint income, but too many house price to earning ratios are based on one income. But that's an outdated viewpoint of, let's just say in my parents' and grandparents' generation, man goes to work and earns money, woman stays at home and keeps kids alive. But now most households, two people are earning an income. So the average first-time buyer deposit is about 20-25%, which is a huge number. There, so they've got
5%, didn't it?
Yeah, and the thing there as well. So whilst we've got a lot stricter stress testing now compared to what we had when the recession happened, and one of the reasons the recession happened, lending criteria has become more flexible.
Yes,
And that will then...
That's easing, isn't it?
Yeah, so that improves purchasing power, which then in turn means more people are going to come to the market. So there is lots of positivity in the market, but that's kind of glass half full.
Let's talk about, what do you think about estate agents talking about the market? Do they know what to talk about? So if you were to advise agents watching this who kind of are wanting to take that leap into being the credible agent around their marketplace and sharing what I call really relevant, useful, informative data information to their market, what would you say the top 5 things they should focus on delivering are?
So first of all, when I had Rob Smith on the podcast, the bloke talks a lot of sense. He said estate agents have to know a little about a lot. And the amount of... I rate a lot of estate agents on how they answer this question, how's the market? Because the average answer to that question is, yeah, good, busy. Well, how do you think a consumer feels? Like if someone said, how's the market? The first thing should be, well, that depends. Are you looking to buy, sell, or buy and sell in this market? There's two different answers. But then in terms of the 5 things they should be looking at, one, if you're advising someone on buying or selling their most prized tax-free asset, majority of the time, you should be knowing the cost of borrowing money. So you should know what the Bank of England base rate is. You should know how much it costs to borrow money right now. What was it a year ago, for example? Because someone might say, I'll only offer 490 on that house and it's on at 500. And then you explain to them, well, an extra 10 grand over a 25-year mortgage based on this interest rate you told me is an extra £2 a day on your mortgage. You're really going to lose out on the house you want for £2 a day. No, you're not, right? So knowing actually the cost of borrowing money, there's a variety of different house price indexes out there. You don't need to be a data geek like me to interpret them. So every month you have Rightmove, Zoopla, Halifax, and Nationwide. So one a week come out, but we'll give you some really good data on what's going on in the market. So I'd say be looking at those.
Do you think people don't do this type of content because it doesn't give them something immediately?
Good question. Yeah, look, I think we're in a world now of just instant gratification. That's not just estate agency, right? I could order a book on Amazon right now, and it will come maybe later or it'll be tomorrow. I can order a takeaway and it arrive and not have to. Where I am in Newport Pagnell, we've got the little Starship Trooper robots where people can go on an app, and the co-op, which is the co-op is a less than a 5-minute walk from my house, and I see the robots come past.
Have nobody tried to take them out?
They start beeping when you try and
get near them.
So why do agents?
I don't know why I suddenly thought about taking the robot out. I don't know where I'm going with that one.
Yeah, what was the agents?
What the top 5 things they should share content around?
Yeah,
you've shared.
Yeah, well, the house price indexes, there are more of them, but those 4, understanding the cost of money, 5 things that they should be sharing. What's actually going on within their local market? Because you can talk, so if I use myself as an example, and let's just forget I'm involved in an estate agency, just I am a homeowner, I'm interested in the property market. I'm then interested in the Midlands, East Anglia, whatever I am. Then I'm interested in Milton Keynes, then Newport Pagnell.
Yeah. So you
then the Poets Estate,
goes like this.
then Goldsmith Drive. So
nice,
the more hyper local you can get, the better. So local content they should be talking about. And in terms of local content, what I'd also be doing, we're actually speaking about this off camera. If I was an estate agent tomorrow, like I'd have the St. Neots podcast, and there's different things you could talk about the property.
We're going to be planning this shortly.
You'd be talking about the property market. You could be interviewing local businesses.
Yeah.
You could also be interviewing all the different moving parts within owning a house. Yeah. So you speak to a surveyor, removals, solicitor, but then also, okay, let's speak to a gardener. What are the do's and don'ts on if I want to landscape my garden and increase value? Speak to an energy assessor. What are the things you can do from an EPC to increase energy efficiency? Because it's proven from Rightmove they'll sell quicker for more money.
Is this helping, Ollie? You can write all this down and we can get this filmed. But that's a really good point, because you're giving value.
Yeah, and the key thing is that as well. Give value, expect nothing in return. So give it out in slices, get it back in loaves. I think good givers are great getters. I think Vicky Pabira said on my podcast, and it's something like God gives to those that give and takes from those who take.
I love that. And when it comes to videos and stuff like that, if you think about certain pockets of the market, you mentioned first-time buyers, and did you say 40%?
Yeah, it's about 40% of purchase first-time buyers.
And it's likely first-time buyers are going to be on their devices, right?
Yeah, so I think this is a massive, again, there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to estate agency. At the moment, there's a real, what's the word? I'm going to say trend for the higher end of the market, because higher value homes, they pay higher fees, they're nicer to deal with, which 100% is true. But actually, if the most common buyer group is a first-time buyer, the average first-time buyer is early 30s, okay, is anyone out there actually giving advice to first-time buyers?
I completely get where you're going with this.
The other thing is, what kind of property do first-time buyers buy? They probably buy a first-time seller's property. So what you should be doing is doing loads of content on, are you a first-time seller? It's one thing buying a house, but this time round, you've got a chain on both sides probably. Absolutely. You've got all these different fees involved, et cetera, et cetera. So if you did loads of content to first-time sellers, Josh Vegan talks about the before market and the after market. But if I want to attract loads of first-time buyers to my business, okay, let's go and find houses to sell that first-time buyers buy, which is first-time sellers. Now, if you think of the whole journey as well, I'm probably going off on one here. The first-time buyer buys for you at the age of 30. Typically, that first-time buyer, if they're anything like me and lots of my friends, a few years later, they sell that 2-bed terrace and go to a 3-bed semi. Then they look to sell the 3-bed semi, go to a 4-bed detached, so on and so on. So if you can do a good enough job at that point of getting them when they buy their first house, and then you deal with them over a 20-year period of buying 3 or 4 houses, maybe they get a buy-to-let over that time, mortgages, conveyance and referrals. You think of the lifetime value.
I've talked to somebody about this not long ago. It's bloody brilliant. It's a brilliant conversation. And I think if you're listening to this, think about your existing model. The higher the fees in the market, what happens when someone buys a home that's, generally speaking, at the top end of the market? when do they come to resell it?
Yeah, but so there's an interesting study from 20CI on this that, and this is where you need to work with data companies who don't just have like house data, but I'm going to call it demographic data. Like, I can't remember the exact stat, but the chances of someone moving within a year after having a baby increases significantly for obvious reasons. Yeah. They run out of room. The 20CI data highlighted that when someone retires, their propensity to move in the first 12 months of retiring is considerably high. Right. So if you can somehow have data and go, okay, in my area, the average person retires at 65, and that type of person lives in a council tax band H property, and I know who they are, I'm going to be sending them a lot of content. And if that content is originally print marketing, which is probably going to appeal to a person of that age, but then that print marketing has a QR code, they scan the QR code, they end up on your website, there's a pixel, you then start following around social media. If you're using something like Life Cycle, they then get onto a website and they see a different website depending on where they are. Maybe they click on a guide that says how to downsize. Like there's so many things out there now that can help.
Do you think, though, that the reason, like coming back to the question around...
What was the question? Yeah.
Well, it's really around, like, I think agents kind of know they need to do this type of thing, this type of content. I mean, maybe not to the detail that we just covered, but the majority don't do it. And I'm talking... I mean, you tell me, would you say what percentage of agents are producing this type of content?
Single digits in a percentage.
So let's say 9%, 8%.
Yeah.
And that's where the opportunity is. So I'm talking about opportunities now in the current market. But is it because that doesn't return on their time immediately? Yeah. I've asked the question, you've answered it, but I kind of want to dig a bit deeper in that.
I mean, it's not just a estate agency, is it? And you've been on this journey yourself over the last decade in terms of like your health and body, and you know that eating the pizza right now will feel good, but it's not the right thing to do in the week, month ahead.
I just had chips for lunch.
I went to watch Nims Persia speak the other night, and I had a KFC beforehand. Other people did as well in there, who I then saw in the theatre. But there's so many studies on this, and what's the study of? You say to someone, you can have £1 now or wait 30 minutes, I'll give you £2. Most people take the £1 now, just instant gratification. Yeah. And the whole instant gratification dopamine is why our phones are such scary devices. Yeah. I try and do exercise with agents where it's like, you keep telling me you've got no time.
Oh yeah, look at your screen time.
Screen time, but it's not just screen time, it's then where is your screen time? It's then how many notifications do you get? And then it's also how many times you pick your phone up and unlock it.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And when you look at that, it's scary. So when people say, like, I try and flip it back to, if I go 15 years ago where social media is not the juggernaut it is now, it's like, okay, if I let's say someone spends 3 or 4 hours on their phone a day, well, before a phone was what it is now, well, what did I do in those 3 or 4 hours in my day? What did I do? Probably went to the pub with my friends, or I watched a bit of TV, or like that time hasn't magically appeared out of nowhere. That's time that's being taken away from something else.
And something that's not really dollar value per hour or whatever you want to call it, you know?
Yeah, you need to, and I think you and I fit into this space where you've got 99% of people on the phone are a content consumer.
Yeah.
You want to be in the 1% who are a content creator.
Yeah.
That time, I'm spending is creating content. And when you're creating content, you're then learning a lot as well. I'm learning from what you're saying today, you're learning from me. Yeah. But if you're just mindlessly scrolling.
I can't. Do you know, I've greatly reduced my own personal scrolling time to the point where I sometimes occasionally look at LinkedIn and think, I just can't be asked to post on LinkedIn anymore, which is really bad. I need to get my act together in that area. But I think it's because I'm beginning to realise that maybe I'm getting old, but I'm beginning to realise that some things are really worth my energy, and so are some people. And I don't know whether it's because I'm reaching a point where I'm actually finally listening to my wisdom, the voice inside of me, not the performer inside of me, not the one that wants to please everybody else or make everybody else's world great for a minute. What's going to make my world great is the people I surround myself with. And am I doing what I fucking love more of my day every day? And scrolling really doesn't kind of fit into that. So I don't know where that come from, by the way. Just a quick share. Coming to you, though, you look like you want to ask me a question there.
No.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah.
Is that a bit weird?
That's
the
podcast.
Was that
podcast host.
Is that a bit deep? Bit deep. We don't mind anyway. But you go on a lot of podcasts. You host your brilliant podcast, the Estate Agent Showdown. But you, what's next for you? What does your year look like? If you was to write a letter to yourself today, and it said the 21st of December, 2026. And it said, congratulations or well done, Simon. What would the letter content look like?
So I do this kind of exercise in that weird time between Christmas and New Year every year. And I think it's really important to write down kind of what went well the year before, what could have gone better, and then the year ahead. In terms of, at the end of 2026, I typically say each year, so from a personal perspective, I like to try and go to 3 or 4 different countries a year. So I found that, going back to the point of success leaves clues, I find that if I can once a quarter, so work really, really hard, and then at the end of the quarter have a break, reset, go again. Yeah. And when I look at, do you remember at the Women in Estate Agency conference last year, which was March 25? I don't know if you'd remember, but I was fucked.
You were, Simon, do you not remember? I messaged you the next day.
Yeah.
And I said, mate, that's the first time I felt I needed to ask you how you are, because it was like you were a ghost of a man, you know, and I've felt like that myself over the years. So I instantly recognised it. And you were knackered. I think, did you then have like a break?
So I was supposed to actually go do a presentation for Ian Macbeth and Avocado the next day. And I got on the train home that evening, and I was just fucked physically, mentally. And I messaged Ian. I went, Ian, I'm so sorry, and I hate letting people down. I was like, just for my mental, physical sanity, I just should not come and see you tomorrow. Like, I'm really sorry. I hate to do this. I just slept the whole weekend. And I thought I blew my chance of Ian because he didn't respond. I was like, oh God. But thankfully I did go down there and do the presentation. But if I kind of look back there, I'd been to Canada on a holiday, but I was roaming around the Canadian Rockies and going to a wedding, and it wasn't a sit on a sun lounger and rest for a week. It's one of those things where you're really busy before you go away, and then you're really busy catching up on the way back. So I hadn't had enough rest time. So learning from that. So in 2025, I got back to having the once a quarter rest reset. Getting to a few different countries is definitely on the agenda. I would say also maintaining where the business is at. But what I mean by that is standing still, you're going to go backwards. And I've seen it too many times with estate agents. So again, going back to the golfing analogy, you don't want to be hitting the 7-iron into wind up a hill. You want to be hitting the 6-iron to get there. That's why I've started releasing loads of video content. I've started producing 2 podcasts a week. I'm going to be launching a new angle to the podcast, which is Opening the Gates Extra Time, which is going to be in person, a bit like this setup.
We beat him to it.
And then what else have I got? I spoke on a lot of stages in 2025. I want to speak at more conferences and events this year.
Any specific ones? Put it out there into the ether.
What do I want to speak at? I don't know really. I mean,
have you spoken at Property Marks, like the big one?
I've not spoken at Property Mark 1.
I don't know what other ones there are.
That could be a good shout. Well, I think so. For me, last year I spoke at Sean Newman's Estate Agent Success Summit and opened up when Tom Panos was on stage as a main speaker. I spoke at Wembley Stadium.
That's such a good thing to say. Look at him at the Wembley Stadium
in the Royal Suite with Kerfuffle. That was just after Josh Fegan. That being crazy. So I think a lot of the same.
Do you ever think, looking back, when did you come here? 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago?
2018, so 8 years ago.
8 years ago. I remember you coming in and we sat down and I think we spoke over the phone first, like talking about what are you looking for, and you were quite willing to put the hand in your own pocket, which was the first thing that stood out to me, was that you weren't doing this because someone told you were doing this because your inner voice told you. Yeah. And you got off your own arse and found someone that you wanted to learn from. And I've always said that to me was like, wow. But it's kind of going back to that point, that Simon, just for a second, because I think I suppose why is to inspire agents to be the best agent they can be, right? And for me, those levels are different. We touched on it earlier with those questions about 70 grand, 350. Someone at 70 could be that could be the best thing since sliced bread for 2 days a week. Yeah. And the person doing 350 could be off, literally stressed to high heaven. But going back to that version of you in 2018, and let's say I wrote down everything that you've done over the last 8 years. Yeah. And I showed you a video of it. And I said, look at this. You're on stage at Wembley. You are speaking at this conference, that conference. How many people follow you now on your socials, roughly?
Well, probably, I don't know, tens of thousands across multiple channels.
And how many people have downloaded your content on the podcast?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but each episode averages about 300 listens, I think.
How many episodes have you
260.
done? What's that then, clever man? 800?
Well, no, hang on.
Sorry, 8,000?
No, what did I say? 260 times 300.
26,000,
52,000, 74. I reckon, if my maths is right, 74,000 downloads, I would say.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah, okay.
Because I'm still playing this all back to you. The 8 years ago Simon.
Yeah.
The Simon of 8 years ago sat in the room just through there. In fact, we went to Y Boston as well, didn't we? I think you came. Did you come here and I took you to Y Boston?
Came here, sat downstairs in an office, and then we went over to Y Boston, yeah.
And that was the first step, really. The first bit of... the first action was reaching out. Yeah. And the second one was that. But the point I'm making is that what would that Simon honestly say about what I've just replayed?
I think once he'd stopped crying, he would say it's not possible.
And I think I really wanted to... That's only come up off the cuff.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of agents out there that I think would leave the industry, and it would be a real shame. And I think it's just perhaps because they haven't got maybe the right person giving them the right advice, or they're not finding their right environment, or they're not living to their values, whatever it might be.
I think we lose a lot of really good people out of this industry, because you get to it, like for me, when I came to see you, I had the job I'd always wanted. I had the partner, I had the car, I had the house, and I was like, is that it? I'm unfulfilled. Everything I thought would be my definition of success.
What was unfulfilling?
But I think that I don't want to come across as arrogant, but then had become a big fish.
Speak your truth.
Big fish in a small pond, where it's like, well, I know this job inside out. Like there's not more to it, and then my hands were kind of tied as to wanting to take it further. And I think it's really important as well is that whilst you've got to take that first step forward yourself, there's only so much that you can do of that. You need someone to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. So for me, that person, my work mum, Helen Rumble, where Helen was like, you should seek out Matt. He'd be great for you. You're wasted where you are.
Isn't that lovely that someone like that, and Helen, hope we need to send this to Helen because there's an acknowledgement here, which is there's a big part of your journey that's down to that person who sees something in you. Yeah. And I see a lot in people, and I don't think sometimes people see that in themselves. And what I mean by that is that, what we've just talked about today with the 1% agent, you're the 1% creator of content in our industry. in my opinion. Like, there's lots of people that create content in our industry. You're in the top 1%, without doubt. And I don't think there's many people in the industry that would argue with that. And I think that's because you centralise your content around value and the value that you bring to people in the industry, and you should be proud of that. And that it's really nice to just take a minute and just think about that Simon versus this Simon. And what actually closed the gap on all of that was going back to what we started with, which was, your desire to learn and your mindset. But something in you was telling you there was more out there.
Yeah, and it's so from meeting you, you believed in me and made me realise that there was something more in me to give. I was having this conversation with an agent just yesterday, saying the trouble is in most environments is that an employer wants to pay you the least they can get away with paying you, but you do your job and keep them sweet. Yeah. That's the brutal, honest truth of it. And they also don't want you to, the whole what's the Richard Branson quote of, I don't want to train them that they leave. It's like, yeah, but do you want them to stay if they're not any good? Yeah. And actually, if those people do a good enough job and keep earning you great money, and then they become amazing enough that they can leave, clap your hands, well done, I'll support you as much as I can, but you're going to treat that person so well that they don't want to go, they want to stay there.
Do you know what? It's I think there's two mindsets, scarcity and abundance.
Yeah.
And scarcity is protection, and you're drawing down on your brain's survival mode. And survival mode features those kind of fears about losing people, instead of making people so good that if they did go, they would do extremely well. But what if they stayed? Yeah. What if they stayed? What if they continued to learn? And what if we made it even better for them in some ways, whether it's building shares into their packages, or we're going through this whole new freaking journey. And Ollie's, how long have we been talking about it, Ollie? Last 2 years. And it's only been the last 3 months where I've started to bring it to life. And the reason for it is we've built a model around partners. And because it's built around partners, if you're around the partner, there isn't really a kind of like a glass, there's a glass ceiling. And I don't like glass ceilings. And if I worked anywhere with a glass ceiling, I would leave because it would feel frustrating. So we're going to remove the glass ceiling and use the partners that are a part of my business, if you like, to elevate the agents and trust them with the process, the things that we do, and create I think I mentioned it earlier in the pod, but a brand, a single brand, and actually get this cohesion and this clarity. So the 2 words for me this year in the letter that I've wrote to myself, and we touched on that quickly, is clarity and alignment. Yeah. I've got to dig deeper into my clarity and my alignment. What is it I want to bring into my world? And it is abundance. It is, I want more. I don't want shit behaviour around me in my life. Shithouse behaviour. I don't want people that blame others, who are disrespectful, who aren't willing to be kind with the truth. They'd rather be full of lies to win business. And I'm quite lucky not to have too many of those people around me. But I want to elevate more people around me directly, because I've spent a number of years trying to do it outside of my group, and it's time to really get to grips inside the group. So clarity feels really powerful. And I think what you got when you come out of where you were and you joined forces with Sam Hunter at Home Search, and you started it felt to me that was the step of curiosity. Like, what's out there other than being an estate agent? So when I said to you, what's next? You said about maintenance and sort of maintaining this year. Tell me just a bit more about that before we end.
Yeah, I think because if you'd said to the trouble is in that top 1% and high performers is you never sit back and observe like you've just done of how far you've come.
No.
And the last...
Has that moved you a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, the last 3 years, how things have gone since starting the business, if you'd said to me 3 years ago, I'd be where I am now, 10 years into business, I'd be like, that's incredible. Yeah.
But you do know that 3 years ago started 4 years before that.
And I think that's a key message for anyone listening or watching is, and I know it's an overused phrase, but don't compare your chapter 1 with someone's chapter 10, because I was thinking about this on the way down here, but like when I joined Home Search, and it was not fun cold calling estate agents, so then all of a sudden start liking and commenting on posts on LinkedIn, then joining the Facebook groups, then all of a sudden I start doing a few posts of my own, then I start doing a lot of posts, then I start recording a few videos, then I launch a podcast, then I have a Facebook group, then I start my own business, I have a LinkedIn newsletter, I've got a journal now, YouTube channel with market updates, I've got a few non-exec roles, and it's like, keep totting them up, but it didn't start, at the top. There's all these little things that compound over time.
And it's like that hockey stick, isn't it? Like that analogy of the hockey stick, and you're at that point, you're at this lovely point. The thing I'm interested to hear about, your journey moving forward from here sounds to me like it's a case of, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm really enjoying it. I'm in a good space, a good place. I feel like I'm delivering on my mission. And, leave me alone, Matt. I don't need any advice. I'm only joking.
No, it's not. It's not. Yeah,
but it's great.
Don't deviate from that mission to become the most useful person to follow for UK estate. So I read that message every day.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's like when I look back at today, have my actions proven that? And I think
that's linked to this.
Yeah, I think Sahil Bloom sort of says it. If someone observed your actions for a day, a week, 30 days, what would they say your priorities are?
It goes back to the same bit around those 5 agents, isn't it? You could show me your last 7 days and I'll show you your next 12 months earnings.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, what's the saying? The busiest person will always be the quickest to reply. And I need to get, I've now got a setup at my desk at home. I've got 3 screens. And in theory, having more screens is to be more productive. But when you've got one screen is email, one is WhatsApp, and then one is work, every time there's a ping, you're going over to the other screen. So it's, again, such simple things like do not disturb. Or
I was going to ask you, because if anyone's listening to this and they hear you're a non-exec in a few companies.
Yep.
You run a very successful podcast, which distributes a podcast every...
times a week.
Yeah, twice a week. I thought it was every week. It went up, didn't it? Not long ago.
So interesting on that, and keep your train of thought. In January, I decided to start releasing 2 episodes a week because I just had so much excess content and people saying, when's the episode coming out? I was nervous that there'd be too much content and people would not be able to keep up with it, because I get a lot of people say that. But actually, I've now got more listens. You'd expect more listens because you're releasing more content, but it's not just more listens, it's more listeners.
Do you manage your time then kind of going into that? So that's 2 episodes a week and do you edit it all, or does somebody else do it for you?
So we're having this conversation off camera earlier. So when I keep it simple stupid or keep it simple Simon, Kiss, I just need to have a guest on Zoom, hit record. So if I was interviewing Matt Giggs and we don't have a prior relationship, I've reached out to you, you've reached out to me to be a guest, done a bit of research online, which, looking at your socials, seeing if there's anything on Google, whatever, that's like 10 minutes research. You have a 45-minute conversation, you then upload it into the app, you put a bit of blurb together, which is pretty easy with AI these days. So it's probably, call it 75 minutes per episode, and that's 2 a week. So that's 150 minutes, it's 2.5 hours if my maths is right. Yeah. So 2.5 hours a week. why would I not give 2.5 hours a week to the thing? If you said to me, what's the thing that's giving you the most success? I launched that podcast in summer of 22. Within 6 months, I quit my job and started a business.
Boom.
But again, that was a hobby before and after work. So this is another thing for, look, where people listening or watching this podcast, they're already in that top, top 1% sort of area because they're learning. They're open-minded, they've got a growth mindset. But I wasn't expecting anything from it. It was I'm going to do a podcast because people have said it would be great if you had one. And I did it before and after work. Well, that summer of 22, I was recording so many episodes.
You can see the difference and hear the difference.
But how many people are gonna go and record 50 episodes in 1 or 2 months? So that's 50 hours. So I've done a work
outside
week.
of your work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I that resonates with me because when I started gigs, I started it 18 months before I launched, and I put fucking so much into the plan and everything else. And, it felt like I was doing 2 jobs for 12 months. But do you know what? I think you do get out what you put in.
Yeah.
I really do. And you're getting out what you put in. And we always toyed, didn't we, about, we are going to finish in a second. But we always toyed about, I wonder if we did something together, like a podcast or like a webinar, or is a webinar still fashionable, by the way, or is it kind of out of date these days? You're a lot younger than I am.
I think I would say they're more dated now.
What could we do at some point this year together?
A live podcast.
Let's
together.
do a live podcast then. Shall we commit to it?
Showdown.
Should we do it?
Yeah.
Should we do that?
This is public accountability.
Let's do it. Because I feel like we've worked together now for 8 years, really, on and off, and we've done so many bits and pieces. And, Simon turned up today and said, what are we going to talk about? I said, I haven't really got a clue. So I stuck a few questions into ChatGPT, and I haven't really read any of them yet. So, and what are we, an hour and a half in?
Can I make a very quick point? Sorry to cut across you. And I've said this a few times to people, but going back to what you said earlier, 2018, when I first met you, and I'm just going to reel off some names now, drop some names. So people like you, Stephen Brown, Sean Newman, Sanjay Gandhi, them as examples. So all of those people, whether it's closely or not, have been a mentor in some way to me. So, and it's got to a point where and I don't know the exact saying, but it's work so hard that your mentors become your business partners kind of thing. In terms of we've worked together. I did a webinar for Stephen. I've spoken on stage numerous times for Sean, and Sanjay invited me to speak at his mastermind last year. So it's again, for any agents listening or watching this, it's you got to put the graft in, and what's the saying? Luck arises when preparation meets opportunity. So if you put that graft in, get in the right rooms with the right people, you will collide.
I think, just to finish off on that, such a lovely thing, because gratitude as well is a rare form of value for a lot of people these days. And I think it's because the world is teaching people just to take what they can. And, I think there's a huge amount behind gratitude, which is, to be admired. And, Simon, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. We'll do that this year. It's one of my intentions, not goals. It's an intention to deliver a live audience podcast this year. So why don't we just do it together? Let's do it. Thank you for watching. Any feedback, subscribe. I always feel a bit awkward about, subscribe and that. But actually, you know what? A lot of effort goes in, and we've got great guests. We've had great guests. I've got more great guests coming on. And if you really enjoy this, I guarantee you somebody else will. So share it with them in terms of your gratitude as well. Enjoy. I'll see you on the next one.